Welcome back to Learning with Merit. Today we are going to cover the Windows file system, but with a command line interface this time. So let's see what we're going to look at. We're going to look at file extensions, the Windows Run Dialog box. Is it command line, terminal, shell, console, or prompt? The command line interface intro, and then how to create, read, update, and delete CRUD, the files and folders with the command line. Let's review. A file is a collection of data that's stored on a computer storage device. They contain any type of data, such as a text, image, video, music, or programs. File extension is a suffix that is added to the end of the file name to indicate the file type, and it is typically separated from the rest of the file name by a period. So we have some very common types here. We have document types like a .text file. That's going to be a very common one we're going to use a lot. We've got .doc, .docs, which is the new Microsoft Word document, ODT, which is an open document format that you may use if you use open source software, PDF, which we've all probably seen. These are documents that can be moved anywhere. It's portable document format. HTML goes along with HTML, which we'll see here, and that is the same thing. It's hypertext markup language, and it is for making web pages. We have spreadsheet types, which are things like Google Sheets and Excel that you'll see. In this case, we're just seeing the types for Excel and ODS, which is an open format of this. We have presentation types as well. If we look at the different presentation types we have PowerPoint, of course, from Microsoft, and ODP, which is for the open document format. We have image types, which we've all probably seen several of these, JPEG or JPG. We have PNGs. We have GIFs. Some people say GIF, but it is GIF. SVG, which are scalable vector graphics. These are newer and very cool. Basically, they use math to prevent you from losing image quality when you change its size. You have audio types like MP3s that we've all probably heard of. We have .waves, AAC files, OGG files. That'll be funny for some of my younger viewers. Then we have FLAC files. These are all, some of these are going to be less common to you because you don't use them that often, but MP3 is pretty common. We have video types here like MP4. That's going to be the most common type of video extension that you see. .move will probably be very common to some of you who use Apple devices. You'll know all of your videos are stored in .move files. This file, whenever I create it, for example, is an MKV file. We have executable types. These are programs that will do something on your computer. .exe is extremely common. It's how a lot of things are installed on your computer. .app for Mac computers, .apk for Androids, .deb for Debian package, which this is going to be for certain Linux distributions, and then .rpm for Red Hat Linux distributions that are out there. So any very interesting stuff that we're going to look at today. So let's look at the Windows Run Dialog. It's a simple window that allows us to quickly open programs, files, folders, anything that we're going to be messing around with a lot. And it can be accessed by pressing the Windows key and R. And then we're going to type in the name of the program or file that we want and press enter. So common commands that we may run with this is WinVer for the Windows version, CMD for the command prompt, PowerShell for the PowerShell, Control opens the control panel, Explorer opens the file explorer, Calc is going to open up a calculator, Notepad is going to open up a simple text editor, Task Manager is going to open our task manager, Chrome will open the Chrome browser, MS Edge will open the Edge browser, Firefox will open the Firefox browser, and then we have a couple more on here, regedit for the registry editor, and msconfig for the system configuration utility. So these are just some common ones. There are a lot more, but these are some simple commands that we may see. So let's actually try these out. If we hit the Windows key and R here, we will see a Run Dialog box down here in the corner. Now, if I come down here and I type in this, All right, that's a bit better, a little bit bigger. All right, if I come down here and type in this and type WinVer, I will see Windows version information on here. And I mean, that's kind of useful if you just want to know what the version of Windows you're using and any information that may go with that. We can also hit Windows R again. Let's type CMD. Now, I already have a command prompt open. But let's see what CMD does. It opens up a new command prompt. Let's see what PowerShell does. It opens up PowerShell, which is a different version of the command prompt. And in fact, you could do everything we're doing a little later on PowerShell as well if you like that better. We can look at the rest of them. So we've got Control. Opens up the Control panel. We've got Explorer. Boom, opens up our Explorer. We can do Calc. I need a calculator. And we'll do a separate video on just the calculator and how to use it. It's a very useful little tool. There's a lot of things going on here. As you can see, a lot of different options. So we'll take a look at that in the future as well. We have Notepad if I need to open up a file. I've got Notepad there. I can type some stuff. Nope, don't want to save that. We've got Task Manager. Now remember, it's not Manager the word, it's MGR. Boom, just like that. Get out of that as well. I can type Chrome since I have it installed, and it opens up Chrome for me. I can type MS Edge, although I don't use it very often. There we go. Opens up Edge and all of the related problems with it. Then we have Firefox. I also have that installed. Oh, I actually don't have Firefox installed. So this is a good learning experience. If you don't have Firefox installed, you can't use the Firefox command. See, it'll say, hey, can't find it. So same thing will happen if you don't have Chrome installed. I typically do have Firefox installed on most, just because they have really good developer tools. Anyway, I'm not going to go through regedit and msconfig because they're a little more detailed type things, and I don't want to get into explaining all of that, but those are how you would open those as well. So Run Dialog's pretty simple. If you have a file or something you want to open, you can do that too, and it'll search through and find it. And of course, there are a lot more commands, but you can look them up online if you want to, but that's how you use it. All right, let's talk about, is it command line, terminal, shell, console, or prompt? Because you're going to hear these words thrown around. A shell is the program that interprets the commands entered by the user at the command line, and it's responsible for executing those commands. The command line is actually the interface that allows the users to interact with the computer by typing in those commands, and it's the most basic type of user interface. A terminal is the actual application that provides access to the command line. A prompt is what tells you that the command line is ready to accept commands. Okay. And it's going to look like a $sign or a greater than sign. On Windows, it's a greater than sign. On Linux, it's a $sign. And then we have a console. The console is the actual physical device that provides that text-based interface. So if you look at it down here, I am actually on a command line. The command line interacts with the shell, right? And I'm using a terminal application. In this case, it's command prompt, and it actually provides me the application here that allows me to do this is called the terminal. And then I have a prompt down here. You see this blinking, flashing light. I have a greater than sign. You can also think of it as like sort of an arrow, and it is providing me the prompt here to say, hey, I'm ready to accept commands. And the prompt also includes, and it varies from system to system on what exactly you have here, and you can also set it up to do specific things. But on Windows, by default, it will give you the path you're in. So here I am in the root directory under users, under my user folder, under my desktop. under a file or a folder, excuse me, that I call Windows File System CLI, because that is the name of the video we're doing right now. So I'm in a folder for all of that stuff, and you'll see that we have this going on right here. So let's talk a little bit about the command line interface. The command line interface can be daunting when you first look at it because it's a blank screen with a flashing cursor and the computer saying, what do you want me to do? So let's take a look at a few pieces before we actually get into using the command line. So the interface is typically made up of the following things. So we have a command name, which is the actual command that we want to run. We have flags that are going to change how that command runs. And then we have arguments. And arguments are also going to change how that command runs. And it just depends on the command whether you need all three or not. We have a very common flag called the help flag to help with a command. We have the help command. We have several other commands here. The help command displays the list of possible commands. System info is going to give us system info. CLS will clear the screen. dir will display the files and folders in our current directory. cd will change our directory. Echo will display the text on the command line. Type will read a file contents. The angle bracket there will redirect some information. Notepad will open Notepad. Tree will display the directory structure of a folder. Move will move. Ren will rename. Del will delete. mkdir makes a directory. rmdir removes a directory. Find helps us locate text in a file. More displays file contents one page at a time. Task list is going to list the running processes. Task kill is going to terminate one of those processes. And then shutdown will help us shut down the computer. A very important keyboard shortcut is Control+C. This is keyboard interrupt. If you ever get stuck in something and the computer is not asking you for a command and it's stuck or it's looping or something like that, we will use Control+C to stop it. So let's take a look at a few commands. First one I'm going to use is CLS because my screen is a little cluttered. So I'm going to clear up my screen. Now I am going to go ahead and close this command prompt and open up another one just so that we know how to get there. I'm going to hit Windows and R, type CMD, just like that. Made it a little bit bigger there. You should be able to see CMD. We'll hit OK, and it should open up a fresh command prompt for us here, just like that. So first thing you'll notice is it's a nice pretty white color on a black background. We have several things on here. We have some information that it gives us to begin with to tell us about what we're using and some copyright information. But we have a piece here, and then we have a blinking cursor. This right here is called the prompt, and more specifically we would call that the prompt. But we have a file path here starting from the root directory // then we have users, then we have /, and then learning with merit. So I am currently in my user folder because this is the username I have on this computer, and so I am in my username folder. Then I have an angle bracket, which is the thing indicating that the computer is prompting me, and then we have a flashing cursor. And so all of this together tells me the computer is ready to receive a command, and I can type whatever I need to in order to give it one. So let's look at a very useful command, something that gives us a list of commands. So we'll type help because we need help. If we do this, what we can see is it provides a list of commands, and all of those commands just so happen to be in uppercase, but you don't have to use them in uppercase. But this is a list of commands that you can actually use on the command line, and we're not going to use all of these today, but we are going to go through quite a few of them that are super useful for working with files, for creating, reading, updating, and deleting files, as well as how we move around and see what we're doing in this particular tool. So I'm going to clear the screen with CLS. And I want to start at the folder that contains all other folders. We call this the root directory. So I'm going to type CD for change directory, and then I'm going to type \, and that will take me to the root. And you'll see that my prompt changed to indicate that I am now in the root folder, and it is ready to receive commands. But I have a new issue. I want to be able to see what I'm looking at. I know how to move around now, but I don't really know where to go. I just happened to know that this was the root directory. So I need to be able to see. So I'm going to type dir. dir is a command that will list the files and folders inside of the current directory that you're in. And folder and directory mean the same thing. So here we go. We have our C drive, and in here we have a folder called perflogs, program files x86, users, and Windows. You'll notice in this column right here it says dir next to all of these. That indicates that they are directories and that you can enter them. You'll notice that it says 0 bytes because there are 0 files and there are 5 directories here. We also have some information over here about when things were created and updated in those columns there. Alright, so let's take a look here at some other commands that we can do. Now, I know that this doesn't show everything in the root directory for me. So maybe I want to make sure that it shows everything. So I'm going to use a flag now. So here's my command, dir. Now I'm going to hit space and add a flag, /A. Now /A technically stands for attributes, but I think of it as all because it shows all. It shows everything. So now we can see what's really in our C drive. And this is stuff that even isn't even shown whenever you look at it on the File Explorer, because File Explorer even hides things from you. So the command prompt can be very useful for you finding things that are often hidden. So we have the recycle bin in here. We have all kinds of other stuff. A few more files that we didn't have last time. If we scroll back up and look at here, we only had 5 things that were shown. Now we're seeing everything. Okay, so dir /A is very useful. And you may be asking, you know, how do I actually figure out what flags to use? How do I figure out, you know, how the command actually works? Well, we already know the help command is useful for listing all of the different commands. But we could use the help command. I'm going to type CLS. We can use the help command in conjunction with the command we're looking at, or we can type the command we're looking at and the flag /? in order to get help with it. So let's look and see what we've got here. This tells us what the command does. This gives us, in general, what the format of the command should look like. This can be very daunting if you don't know what you're looking at. Gives us some more information here. So we have drive path file name, and that's telling you specify the drive, directory, files, whatever it wants to list, you can specify in this format. And then it gives us a bunch of flags that we can use, /A, B, C, D, L, N, and O. And it tells us what those flags do. In this case, it says displays files with specified attributes for /A. And you'll notice that I used lowercase a. It doesn't actually matter. They use the uppercase in these to indicate the commands, the flags, but you can use lowercase for those. Typically, I will tell you that everything in the command line is case sensitive, and that is true most of the time. So you should treat it like it is, and in fact, it should let you if you use uppercase with these. It should work, no question. But you do not actually have to use that on the command prompt. In other command lines, you will have to be case sensitive. For example, Linux will require you to be case sensitive on flags. All right, so now that we know how to look up the flags that we can use with a given command, we can start really getting into what we're doing. Now, it says press any key to continue. There we go. And it gives us the prompt back. Type CLS. And my screen is cleared. So now that I know that I can look in here, let's just use the simple system here. We've got users and Windows. And I want to go into the users directory here. So we're going to take a look at what's in the users directory. just like that. You'll see that my prompt changed. I'll type dir to see what's in there, and we'll see a couple of new interesting things. So one, we have a public user. We have my username. This will be replaced with your username, and you may see the username of other users who also use the same computer. Then we have ... and ... So this is my username folder. This is a user folder that exists on all of your computers. Everyone has the public user. And then the ... and the ... So ... is a reference to the current directory that we are in. So users. ... is a reference to the directory above it. So if I was to type cd ... it takes me back one directory. So I'll cd and then users. And then if I cd to learning with merit like that, clear my screen and I do cd ... cd ... it takes me all the way back. So you see the ... is a reference to the directory above the directory that you are currently in. So I'll show you a new cool trick. If I know the path to exactly where I want to go, I can type cd and that path. So here I've got users / learning with merit, hit enter, and there we go. So I moved all the way from the root directory to the learning with merit directory. Let's take a look at what's in my user directory. If I type dir, you'll see I have several things. Most of them are directories, don't have any files. But I've got desktops and documents, downloads, favorites, links, music, OneDrive everybody has now, saved games, searches, videos. These are all common directories that you will find. One you probably don't have is this .vs code directory. This is one that I have because I have a application that I use called VS Code that has stored some information in this .vs code directory here. And of course you'll see ... and ... again, because I'm not in the root directory. I have a reference to the current and to the directory above the one that I'm in. So I'll type CLS here, clear the screen again, change my directory to my desktop, clear it again just so we have everything good. Alright, now that we know how to move around and we know how to create directory, or we don't know how to create directories, excuse me. Now that we know how to move around and how to list files and folders, clear our screen, that sort of thing, there are a few other commands that can be very useful. Let's say that I want to see an entire listing of the folders from where I'm at all the way down, basically. So this one can actually be very useful. So I'm going to change and go back up again, change and go back up again, and I'm going to type a command called tree. Now if I type a command called tree and I hit enter like that, it will list a branching little diagram of all of the folders inside of my current folder and the folders that exist inside of them. So it looks like a tree with all the branches, right? So Learning with Merit has a VS Code folder, and that folder has the CLI, extensions, all of these are folders. Same thing here. 3D Objects looks like it has nothing in it, folders-wise. Contacts doesn't, but Desktop has 2 folders in it. Documents has 1 folder in it. Okay? So on and so forth. And so we can look and see at all of the folders. Let's say this one is going to be real big when we do this. One of the flags we can use for tree is /f, and that includes the files. If I do that, we get a much larger diagram. But I can see the files that are included as well. Look at that. That's a whole bunch of pictures. All .pngs. But see, we can look through all of the different files that are available as well as the folders using a flag with the tree command. Type CLS to clear that up for us. So now we know how to display like the entire sort of folder structure, including the files if we need to. All right, let's go back to the users directory that we have, and let's go back to our username directory, and then the desktop. Oop, case sensitive. There we go. Clear the screen. Let's learn how to make some things now. So now that we know how to move around, we know how to see, we know how to look at stuff, let's move around and make some files. So first, let's learn how to make folders. So we'll do mkdir for make a directory, and then we need to give that directory a name. I'm going to call it my folder. If I want to use a space, then I need to put it in quotes. So if I do my folder like that, I will put it in quotes. If I don't want the quotes, meaning I don't want the space, I don't need the quotes. So there we go. Let's make sure it was made, and we will see my folder right there. Clear that up. Now that we know how to make a folder, let's learn how to remove one. So we do rm dir my folder, dir to see, and my folder's gone. So I'll make it one more time. Check and make sure it's there. It is. We'll clear it up. All right, now let's move into that folder and put some things in there. So we will cd into my folder. We will type dir, and we'll see that there is nothing there except a reference to the current folder and the folder above it. Now we're going to make a file. To make a file, there are two different ways. First, we're going to make an empty file. So we'll type type. We will type null. Then we will use the redirect command to redirect it into a file we will call empty.txt. So what we've done here is we have the command type. Then we are providing null. Null means literally nothing. Nothing in computer science. And then we have the angle bracket here, which is the redirect, and we're redirecting that output to empty.txt. Make sure I can hit enter. It's giving me a little bit of trouble there. There we go. I got it to recognize it finally. Clear the screen, type dir. Now we see that empty.txt exists. You'll also see that it's 0 bytes. And remember that there are 8 bits in a byte, and a bit is a 0 or a 1. So we have no bits, no bytes, nothing inside empty.txt. We can actually check that in two ways. We can type the name of the file. We'll see it outputs nothing. We can look at Notepad and the name of the file, and we'll see that there is nothing in the file, and we know that we did it right because it says empty.txt right here. We can hit Control W to get out of that. Type CLS. So now we know how to make an empty file. Let's make one with something in it. We'll type echo, and then in quotes, whatever we want it to say in the file. So hello world, use the redirect command. I'll call this one file.txt. Hit enter. Type dir, and we'll see that file.txt exists. It is 16 bytes, which means it has something in it. So I'll type CLS, clear that out. We're going to read it, so we'll type file.txt. Let's say I want to edit it, so I'll use Notepad, file.txt. Now I can edit it. Let's move this over, and you'll see it's hello world. We'll see we're in file.txt. I can edit it, change whatever I want to with it to say something else. Save it, close it. Clear the screen, type file.txt. You'll see it says something else now. Alright, so now we know how to make an empty file. We know how to make a file with something in it. Let's talk about how we can rename a file. So if I want to rename file.txt to something else, I can type ren file.txt, and we'll call it new name.txt. Type dir, and you'll see that file.txt now says new name.txt. You'll also see that it's a different number of bytes. That's because we changed the text that was in it, because it says something else now. So the size changes whenever you change the contents of the file, right? That just makes sense. Type CLS. Now that we know how to rename stuff, how do we move stuff? So I'll type move. and I'm going to type the file I want to move. So we'll move, let's actually move empty. So we'll move empty.txt, and let's move it to one file up. So I could do dot dot like that if I wanted to move it back one. If I wanted to move it somewhere specific and I just wanted to give it the whole path, I could do C:\users / learning with merit like that, and then let's move it to the desktop, for example. So I could do that, and that would also move it back one directory. Let's move it back to learning with merit like that. And you'll see it says one file moved. Now I don't want to move from where I'm at, but I do want to go see if it's actually in that spot. So I'll type dir, and then I'll type the path that I want here. So C:\users learning with merit, and it will list that spot, and we'll see, hey, there's empty.txt. But you'll notice that my prompt didn't change this time, and that's because I told it where to look but not to move me there. So I'm still in the same spot, and I still got to look where I wanted to, and that's a very useful little tool there for that. All right, so now that we know how to move, rename, let's learn how to delete a file. So I want to delete that file, so I'm going to go ahead and move there. So I'm going to do cd dot 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 like that. Now that should take me 2 directories back up. And it does, and it takes me all the way back up to learning with merit. So I'll type dir. There's empty.txt, and then I will clear this. To remove it, what we're going to do is we're going to say del empty.txt, clear the screen, dir, and you'll see it's no longer there. It was right in here, but now it's gone. I'm going to move back to my folder now, so I'm going to say cd, I'm going to go to desktop, I'm going to go / my folder, type dir, make sure we still have all our stuff in there, and we do. All right, now that we know how to do all of those things, create, read, update, and delete our files and even folders, there's one more thing we need to learn, and that's how to delete a folder that is not empty. So I'm going to go back one, clear this, and if I try to remove my folder right now, it's going to say the directory is not empty, and that causes an issue for us. So I need help with the remove directory command. And if I do that, I see, oh hey, there is a flag /s to remove all directories and files in the directory that I'm looking at, and Q for quiet mode so it doesn't ask me, because I know I want to delete everything. So I don't want a bunch of prompts to do that. So I'm going to do CLS, I'm going to do rmdir /s space /q, and then I'm going to tell it my folder. Now that I did that, you notice this time it didn't have a problem. If I type dir, you'll notice that my folder does not exist anymore inside of the desktop. It is completely deleted. Now there are many more commands that you can actually run and use, but these are the basic ones that we use to move around, look at things, create files, delete files, move folders, all of that sort of stuff. So I encourage you quite a bit to use this help command. Look at the different commands that you can run. Pick a command at random that you think is interesting, like start, for example. That one's a cool one. There's rename, so both of these are sort of the same. There's also replace. There's all kinds of commands you can look at here. Well, there's one. Let's look at path. Path might be useful to have. So let's come down here, CLS. How will I figure out how to use path? Well, I'd use help, path, and it will give me, in a simple way for the most part, can be kind of confusing when it has stuff like this, but basically it tells you how to use the command. And you can start trying to use the command and figure it out. If this isn't horribly helpful, using the help command and figuring out these different commands like this, you can also use a simple Google search to learn what these commands do and maybe some examples of how to use them in what you're trying to do. Some commands will require that you have administrator privileges, like diskpart, for example. But quite a few of these commands will allow you to do whatever you need to do on a daily basis running on the command line. And with that, I'm going to show you the last command, and that's how do I get out of the command line? It is exit. I hope that was helpful and interesting and that you learned something, and I appreciate you watching Learning with Merit.